everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you very much for tuning in for the long-awaited episode 19, I guess, of TST. It's been quite some time, though, since I've put an episode out. I do apologize. I think it's been like 5 or 6 weeks or something. Probably feels like 3 years for anyone who actually keeps checking for videos. I do appreciate your enthusiasm in looking for the program. Had some computer issues, massive computer failure, and it crashed completely. Lost everything on it, and had to go through a very lengthy recovery process just to find out that all of my Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and essentially everything TST that I've been working so hard creating and setting up and everything like that, everything had been lost. So essentially had to start from scratch. Once I did get the computer back finally, thanks to the guys from Healthy Computers in Listowel for that. Now that I have the computer back and now that I have everything going full-fledged, I'm ready to hit the ground running again, once again with TST. And like a lot's happened since the last time I put an episode out. I completely missed the Olympics. I think some people may not have been really into the idea of the Olympics going in, but it turned out they were a big fan of it coming out. Canada showing very well at the Canadian or at the Pyeongchang Olympics 2018, placing third in the overall medal haul. Very impressive. A lot of great athletes represented Canada really well. We didn't get the golds that we were hoping for in the men's and women's hockey. The women coming up short against the United States for the gold in the gold medal game. Canada winning a bronze medal after being eliminated by Germany in the semifinals. Germany going on to lose to Russia in the gold medal game there. Very entertaining, though. The whole aspect of the Olympics had everybody going from the get-go. And it was like they said it would, once Canada won that first medal, it just seemed like people were interested in what was going on. And as time drew on, it became more and more invigorating what was happening. And really, Canada, great showing. Just once again, proving why Canada is the best. And you know what? Hey, third isn't so bad. Coming up on the medal haul in the third spot is very, very impressive. So it's a great time in sports right now. There are so many things going on, and hopefully I'll get to touch on them all, at least the major things going on as well. I mean, at least what some or most consider major. I mean, the 4 major sports that we have. We got hockey, baseball, basketball, and the NFL, which is done now. The last time I put out an episode was right before the Super Bowl. So we had the NFL Super Bowl, Eagles winning over the Patriots. That was just an incredible Super Bowl. It really was. 2 teams combined for almost 100 points. It was an incredible game. And, it was one for the history books, obviously. And, much congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. Going into what we have for the episode today, there's a lot of things going on right now. The OHL, the Ontario Hockey League, is nearing the playoffs. We only have a few games remaining on the schedule for each team. Most of the playoff seeds are wrapped up. We'll talk about that when we talk about the Owen Sound Attack in the OHL. The WOAA, which we focus on here, their playoffs, they're well into the second round now. Saugeen Shores eliminated in the first round. I'll talk about that coming up shortly here. We have the NHL, and the Toronto Maple Leafs firmly in that number 3 spot right now. But the top 3 seeds in the Atlantic are probably not going to change. We'll touch on everything Toronto and NHL-wise. We'll get you caught up to speed there. And we want to talk about the NBA and the Toronto Raptors, who are number 1 in the Eastern Conference by 1.5 games over the Boston Celtics. We'll touch on all those stories and all the wonderful that is the world of sports, because really it's quite interesting right now. And I'm just happy to be back, and I'm happy to be producing these episodes and getting them out to you. I promise, I really want you guys to know that I try my absolute hardest to get these out as soon as possible. There's a lot of prep work that goes into it. There's a lot of things that I got to do, and I really want the product to be good, so I hope you guys can appreciate that. We're going to take a little break here. We'll be right back after this with the WOAA Senior AA Men's Report. We'll be right back. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Okay, the first thing we want to discuss, the first segment in our show today is we want to cover and we want to talk a little bit about the WOAA and the Senior AA men's league. We're right into the thick of the second round. We had the Saugeen Shores Winterhawks unfortunately go out in the first round, a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Durham Thundercats. Their series was absolutely incredible. 3 of the games were 1-goal games. The final game was a 6-5 overtime win for the Durham Thundercats in game number 4 at the Plex. I had the privilege of calling that game. It was actually it was fun. It was fun for me. I really did enjoy it. You know what? Thank you very much again to Jordan McKinnon for that opportunity. It was an unbelievable experience for me. It would have been nicer if they would have won, but they were down 5-3. They scored 2 in the third period to tie the game, send it into overtime, but ultimately Durham scoring their 6th power play goal of the game in overtime on the power play, of course, to win the game and the series. Other series that we had the Clinton Radars over the Huron East Centenaires in the first round. That was a 4-game sweep. The Tillsonburg Thunder over the Shelburne Muskies 4-0. That was a sweep there. And Ripley Wolves defeating Milverton 4-1 to advance to the second round. Now, it has been quite a second round, but first we want to look right now at the Petrolia Tavistock series. That is the 2018 WOAA A final over on the A side. It's like the consolation, but we don't like to call it that. It's just the A final. We got Petrolia against Tavistock, and that series is all deadlocked at 1 at this point. Petrolia taking game number 1 by a score of 6-3, while Tavistock come right back. They won game 2, 3-2. The series schedule looks like this, though. Game number 3, Friday, March 9th in Petrolia. That's an 8:30 start. Then game 4 will be Sunday, March 11th in Tavistock. That's a 1 p.m. matinee. Game number 5 goes Friday, March 16th in Petrolia at 8:30. And then game 6, if necessary, Saturday, March 17th in Tavistock at 7:30. And then game number 7, Sunday, March 18th in Petrolia, 7:30 puck drop there again, if necessary, if it gets all the way to game number 7. Like I said, that series is tied at 1 apiece. Our next series that we look at is the Clinton Radars and the Tillsonburg Thunder. We switch over now to the WOAA Senior AA semifinals. Our semifinal number 1 again, Radars and Thunder, matchup of 1 versus 4. So far, this series is tied at 2. Tillsonburg taking game number 1 and handing the Radars their first loss of the season. It was a 5-3 final for the Thunder. Clinton coming back in game number 2 by a 4-1 score to even it up at 1. The Tillsonburg Thunder then shutting out the Radars. Of course, it's their first shutout of the season's second loss. Tillsonburg taking a 2-1 lead at that point with a 3-0 victory in game 3. And then game number 4, Clinton coming back in a big way. 6-1 was the final for game number 4, tying this series at 2 games apiece. The rest of the schedule looks like this. Game number 5 goes Friday, March 9th in Clinton. That's an 8:30 start. And then game 6, Saturday, March 10th in Tillsonburg. That's a 7:30 puck drop. And then game 7, if necessary, Sunday, March 11th in Clinton. That's a 5 p.m. start in Clinton for game number 7 between these two teams. This series has been absolutely incredible to this point. I don't expect that to change. Moving onward, we look at our second semifinal, which has the number 2 Ripley Wolves against the number 3 Durham Thundercats. This one has actually been surprisingly favored by the Durham Thundercats. Of course, these two teams were very close. They finished 2-3 in the standings. Ripley 17-3, Durham 16-4. I've seen Durham play firsthand. I've seen Ripley play firsthand. These two teams are very good, very talented. And like I say, as of the series page indicates, the Durham Thundercats lead this series currently 3-1. They've won game 1 and 2 by the same score, 5-0, 1 and 2. Game number 3 saw the Ripley Wolves come back 4-0 in that one to put it at 2-1 Durham. But then Durham taking a stranglehold of the series in game number 4 with a 6-3 victory. Looking at the rest of the schedule, we have game number 5 that goes Saturday, March 10th in Ripley. That's a 7 p.m. start. If the Ripley Wolves should win, game number 6 would go Sunday, March 11th in Durham. That's a 1:30 start. And game number 7, if necessary, if it comes all the way back, Tuesday, March 13th in Ripley, 8:30 would be the puck drop there. The WOAA playoffs have been nothing but spectacular to this point, and as the bracket indicates, like I say, Clinton Radars and Tillsonburg Thunder 2-2, and the Thundercats leading the Wolves 3-1. The winner of these two matchups will face each other in the 2018 WOAA Senior AA Men's Championship. These 4 teams are fully deserving to be there, and whichever ones end up there, it will be spectacular. You know what, in terms of the Winterhawks, which we've been covering all season long, they had a good season. But change is coming, and it is unfortunate to see them bail out in the first round, but they gave Durham everything they could. They were a shot away from really controlling the whole series. It could have gone either way, with the exception of game number 3. And you know what? Hats off to Durham. They're a good team, and they're proving it so far in the second round against Ripley. But we'll continue to cover the WOAA week after week as long as until we could cap a winner on this crazy season that is the WOAA. It's an incredible league, and for you guys who haven't gone out to games, I really encourage it because it's incredible hockey, and you won't see it anywhere else. That's all for the coverage for this week's episode on the WOAA Senior AA Men's Hockey League. We'll be right back after this. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers, your host of TST Total Sports Talk, here with you. Thank you very much for joining me. We've reached a point in the show now where we want to talk about the Ontario Hockey League and the Owen Sound Attack. The Attack have really asserted themselves into the thick of the Western Conference as they sit right in that mid-level. They struggled for a little bit there around Christmas time, even around the last time I put out an episode. They were struggling for a really long time. They couldn't win a game. It seemed that they made a couple moves, and they haven't done anything but win since. And it's been an incredible run. Nick Suzuki has been just absolutely incredible, leading the charge. He's the team's unanimous MVP, if you ask me. If I had a vote, I would definitely vote for Nick Suzuki to win the MVP for the Owen Sound Attack for their season. He's been nothing short of incredible. The guy's got a lot of skill. What we want to do, though, is look at the week that was for your Owen Sound Attack. They started in Erie, at the Erie Insurance Arena against the Erie Otters, where they would be victorious. 4-0 would be the final. The Owen Sound Attack improving their record to 32-21, 2-5, while the Erie Otters fall to 20-31, 7-3. Scoring for your Owen Sound Attack was Jonah Gadjevich with his 21st, Ethan Zapula with his 14th, Mitchell Russell with his 2nd, and Brady Lyle with his 10th. Maxime Shushko would add an assist. Ollie Lafreniere, goaltender for the Owen Sound Attack, stopped 21 of 21 for the victory. He's been very good since he's come over, and it is his first Ontario Hockey League shutout. Goaltender Daniel Murphy of the Erie Otters stopped 37 of 40 in the loss for the Erie Otters, and a huge win for the Owen Sound Attack at the Erie Insurance Arena in Erie. Moving on, it was the Owen Sound Attack and the Guelph Storm from the Harry Lumley Bayshore, a Saturday matinee as part of the Sportsnet Showcase Showdown. We had the Guelph Storm come out big. 8-3 was the final over the Owen Sound Attack. The Guelph Storm improving to 28-25, 4-4 on the season, while the Attack fall to 32-22, 2-5 on the year. Olivier Lafreniere started the game for the Owen Sound Attack. He would only last one period, allowing 4 goals on 12 shots. He was replaced by Matt Guzda to go the rest of the way. He stopped 21 of 25 the rest of the way. Lafreniere tagged with the loss in this one, while goaltender Anthony Popovich of the Guelph Storm stopped 43 of 46 for the victory. Scoring for your Owen Sound Attack was Kevin Hancock with his 23rd. He also added 2 assists. Nick Suzuki had his 34th and added an assist, and Jonah Gadjevich with his 22nd. Marcus Phillips and Trent Bork added assists for the Attack. While scoring for the Guelph Storm, there was a plenty. They had singles from 8 different scorers, including Cedric Ralph, who had a 3-point night and added his 20th, James McEwen with his 13th, Isaac Ratcliffe with his 36th, Liam Howell with his 13th, Zach Poirier with his 7th, Barrett Kerwin his 13th, Keegan Stevenson his 4th, and Alexei Toropchenko with his 15th for the Guelph Storm. Like I said, eight different scores, 8 different ways, and it was a real a beating by the Guelph Storm on the national stage against the Owen Sound Attack. 8-3 was the final in that one. And finally, the Owen Sound Attack wrapped up their week with a visit to Progressive Auto Sales Arena in Sarnia to take on the third-place Sarnia Sting. Sarnia coming out on top 5-4 in overtime in this one. Sarnia improving to 43-15, 4-1 on the season, while the Attack fall to 32-22, 3-5. Olivier Lafreniere had stopped 27 of 32 in the loss, while goaltender Justin Fazio stopped 25 of 29 for the Sarnia Sting in the net for the victory. Scoring for your own sound attack was Alan Lethargic with his 17th. He also had an assist. Ethan Zapula with his 15th. Jonah Gadjevich his 23rd. And Maxim Shushko with his 29th. Brett McKenzie had 2 assists for the attack and the loss. Scoring for the Sarnia Sting, Jordan Kyrou had his 36th of the season. He also added 2 assists. Jonathan Ang with his 24th added 2 assists as well. Cam Deneen with his 20th. He had a goal and an assist in the victory. While Jamison Reese and Jordan Ernst had goals apiece as their 5th and 27th, respectively, on the season. Sarnia victorious in this one. 5-4 was the final in overtime. Looking now at your OHL standings, we start in the Western Conference. All 8 teams are confirmed for the playoffs in the Western Conference. The top 8, we start at the top with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. They have clinched the President's Trophy, the OHL's version of the President's Trophy, with the top record in the OHL at this point. Their record as it stands now is 52-6-2-2 on the year, good for 108 points. They've been nothing but unbelievable. That 6 in the loss column is unfathomable. That's just unbelievable to think about. The Kitchener Rangers slotted in the number 2 spot, 41-19-2-0 on the year, good for 84 points. The Sarnia Sting are at number 3. They are 43-15-4-1, good for 91 points. The London Knights have a 2-point lead over the Owen Sound Attack for 4th in the Western Conference. They have 74, Owen Sound with 72. You got the Guelph Storm in the number 6 spot. They have 65 points. Saginaw Spirit at 7 at 64 points, 1 behind. And then the Windsor Spitfires, 1 behind the Saginaw Spirit at 63 points in the number 8 spot. Eliminated from postseason contention are the Erie Otters and the Flint Firebirds at 52 and 41 points respectively in the Western Conference. Switching over now to the Eastern Conference, we have the Hamilton Bulldogs winning the East Conference Championship. They have a record of 41-16-3-3. They have clinched that number 1 seed in the East. They have 88 points at this point in the season. The number 2 seed Barrie Colts have 79 points. They have a 4-point lead over the 3rd place Kingston Frontenacs at 75. Niagara Ice Dogs come in at number 4. They have 68 points, 1 better than the Oshawa Generals, who have 67 points in the number 5 spot. North Bay Battalion, 1 behind at 66. The Ottawa 67s in the number 7 spot at 64. And the Mississauga Steelhead, 61 points in the 8th spot. They have not officially clinched yet, but they have an 11-point lead over the Peterborough Petes for the 8th and final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. It's all but assumed that the Mississauga Steelheads will clinch at some point this week. Peterborough, like I said, at number 9. They have 50 points, and then the Sudbury Wolves, who have been officially eliminated since about December, they have 39 points at this point in the season. Moving on now, we want to look at the OHL bracket. Right now, as it suits up, we'd have the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Mississauga Steelheads, a match of 1 and 8 on the east side. Niagara against Oshawa, Kingston against North Bay, and Barrie against Ottawa. And then on the west side, you have the number 1 Sioux Greyhounds up against the Windsor Spitfires. You'd have the London Knights over the Owen Sound Attack, the Sarnia Sting and the Guelph Storm, and the Kitchener Rangers and the Saginaw Spirit for the right to go to the 100th Memorial Cup. It'd be quite the accomplishment. We'd look here for the OHL champion that would go to the Memorial Cup. Of course, it's being held in a Western Hockey League's arena, so they will have 2 representatives. You'll have 1 representative from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and then you'll have the OHL champion represented there. We want to look now at your Owen Sound Attack scoring leaders at this point in the regular season. Nick Suzuki leads the way by a wide margin. 34 goals, 55 assists, good for 89 points. Kevin Hancock, who's had a very, very good year for the Owen Sound Attack, 61 points in the number 2 spot. Aiden Dudas at 58 points. Maxime Shushko at 53. Sean Dursey at 47. He hasn't played in quite some time. Ethan Zapula at 43 points for number 6. Brett McKenzie, 41. Jonah Gadjevich at 40 points, 23 goals, 17 assists. He's missed a bulk of the season due to injury. And Alan Lethargic and Marcus Phillips wrapped the top 10 at 34 and 33 points respectively. And looking now finally at your OHL Ontario Hockey League scoring leaders, it's a 3-man race for the number 1 spot. Right now, Aaron Luchuk of the Barrie Colts leads the way at 45 and 60 for 105 points. He is tied with Jordan Kyrou of the Sarnia Sting at 36 goals and 69 assists, good for 105 points. Morgan Frost at 38 goals and 64 assists for 102 points from the Sioux Greyhounds in the number 3 spot. These guys really duke it out for the privilege to be called the OHL scoring champion. Nick Suzuki is far behind at number 4. He has 89 points. Sam Militek of the Niagara Ice Dogs rounds out the top 5. He has 86 points. Sokolov, Maskarin, Kachuk, Robertson, and Bouchard round out your top 10 in the OHL's scoring leaders. Up next for your own sound attack as we take a look at their schedule upcoming. This upcoming Thursday, March the 8th, it's the own sound attack into Barrie to the Barrie Molson Center to face off against the Colts. That's a 7:30 puck drop between the own sound attack and the Barrie Colts. They follow that up with a visit from the Saginaw Spirit into the Harry Lumley Bayshore on Saturday, March the 10th. That's a 7:30 puck drop there in Owen Sound. And then they follow that up with a matinee affair on Sunday, March 11th. They welcome in the OHL leading Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds and their 6 losses. Who knows if it'll be more than that. I doubt it when these two teams meet. Sunday, March 11th. It's a 2 p.m. start at the Harry Lumley Bayshore between the Sioux Greyhounds and the Owen Sound Attack. That has been all for your own sound attack and OHL report to this point for this episode of TST Total Sports Talk. We'll be right back. We're going to step out for a second. We'll be right back after this. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here, the host of TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for staying loyal, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of TST thus far. We want to move on now, though, to the NHL portion of our show, and we want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs now. They are firmly in the number 3 spot. It's a crazy battle right now in the Atlantic between the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Boston Bruins, and the Toronto Maple Leafs in a battle of jockeying position. It looks like Tampa's pulling away. Boston's separating themselves a little bit from Toronto, but these 3 teams are the definite beasts of the East. As right now, actually, as it stands, the Toronto Maple Leafs would be number 1 in the Metro, if you can believe it. But that being said, with the exception of the Florida Panthers, the rest of the Atlantic is pretty much pales in comparison to the Metro, as you have all 8 teams from the Metro in the thick of it when it comes to the wild card, which I'll explain in a little bit. First off, what we want to do is wrap the week that was for your Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're going to do that right now. We start with the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Lightning coming out on top in this one. 4-3 was the final in the shootout. Toronto Maple Leafs falling to 39-20-6 on the season, while the Tampa Bay Lightning improved to 43-17-8 on the year. Frederik Andersen suffered the loss. He stopped 39 of 42 in the defeat for the Maple Leafs, while Andrei Vasilevsky continued his Vezina-type season. He stopped 27 of 30 in the victory for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Scoring for your Toronto Maple Leafs, Mitch Marner had his 17th, while James Van Riemsdyk added his 26th, and Tyler Bozak with his 10th. Morgan Riley added 2 assists, while Jake Gardner added a single. Scoring for the Tampa Bay Lightning was Tyler Johnson with his 18th, Chris Kunitz with his 11th, and Adam Erne with his 2nd on the year. Assists going to Steven Stamkos and Yanni Gourde on the game. In the shootout portion, the skills competition, William Nylander, Kasperi Kapanen, and James Van Riemsdyk shot for the Maple Leafs. They all missed, while Ryan Callahan, Braden Point, and Yanni Gourde shot for the Tampa Bay Lightning, with Braden Point being the only goal scorer in the skills competition to give the Tampa Bay Lightning a 4-3 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Maple Leafs would follow that up in Sunrise, Florida, as they would take on the Florida Panthers at the BB&T Center. Florida coming out on top 3-2, the final in overtime in this one. Maple Leafs falling to 39-20-7 on the season, while Florida improved to 29-25-6 with the victory. Curtis McElhinney started for the Maple Leafs on the second of a back-to-back. He stopped 28 of 31 in the defeat, while Roberto Luongo stymied the Toronto Maple Leafs on this night, stopping 37 of 39 for the victory. Scoring for your Toronto Maple Leafs was Zach Hyman with his 12th. Dominic Moore added his 6th. Kasperi Kapanen, William Nylander, and Leo Komarov adding assists for the Maple Leafs in the defeat. While on the other side, the Florida Panthers got goals from Jonathan Huberdeau, his 19th, Alexander Barkov with his 21st, and Jared McCann netted his 7th in the overtime period for the winning goal. Vincent Trocheck and Aaron Ekblad added assists for Trocheck 2, for Ekblad 1. The Florida Panthers continue to stay hot in their surge for the second wildcard position with a big 3-2 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime. Moving on, we had the outdoor game at the U.S. Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland, between the Washington Capitals and Toronto Maple Leafs. This was an unbelievable event that saw everything crazy, but the Washington Capitals came out on top. 5-2 was the final in this one. Maple Leafs dropping to 39-21-7 on the season, while the Capitals improved to 37-21-7 on the year. Scoring for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the outdoor game, that Zach Hyman with his 13th and Nazem Kadri with his 24th. Patrick Marleau, Travis Dermott, and Roman Polak adding assists, while Frederik Andersen stopped 20 of 25 in the loss for the Maple Leafs. For the Washington Capitals, Braden Holtby stopped 27 of 29 in the Washington net for the victory, while Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and John Carlson all added a goal and 2 assists on the night for 3-point nights. For Backstrom, it was his 16th, for Kuznetsov his 20th, and John Carlson his 12th. Also adding singles were Alex Ovechkin with his 40th and Jakub Vrana with his 11th to pace the Washington Capitals in this one. Like I said, final 5-2 for the Capitals in their third straight loss for the Maple Leafs. And finally, wrapping the week, the Buffalo Sabres were the were the home team, bringing in the Toronto Maple Leafs to the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo surprising the Maple Leafs in this one. 5-3 was the final. Maple Leafs falling to 39-22-7 on the year. That's their 4th loss in a row. Frederik Andersen started again for the Maple Leafs. He stopped 19 of 24 in the defeat. While Chad Johnson of the Buffalo Sabres stopped 38 of 41. He was peppered all night long, but equal to the task, and he got the big victory for the Sabres in the net. Sabres improving to 21-34-11 on the season. Scoring for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Leo Komarov added 2, his 6th and 7th on the year, while Mitch Marner added a single, his 18th. William Nylander, Patrick Marleau, and Morgan Riley added assists for the Leafs. Over on the Sabres side, they got points, 2-point nights from Ryan O'Reilly, Jason Pominville, Sam Reinhart, and Johan Larsson. For O'Reilly is 19th, Pominville is 11th, Reinhart with his 16th, and Johan Larsson with his 4th. Zemgus Girgensons added his 7th of the season. 5 different goal scorers for the Buffalo Sabres overall. One thing, though, you got to talk about, though, when it comes to this Buffalo game is, again, this ongoing issue with goaltender interference, particularly the Ryan O'Reilly goal, where Frederik Andersen appears to be interfered with in the Toronto Maple Leaf net, courtesy of a slew foot, and it gets reviewed, and it's called a goal on the ice anyways. This is troubling, because their explanation, at least according to Mike Babcock, was that Frederik Andersen was outside the crease, thus it was not considered goaltender interference. Okay, fine, I get that, but the problem is the consistency here. It's not being called consistently throughout the entirety of the league from every different official, from every different for every different circumstance. It's got to be consistent, and there has to be a specific writing. I hear so many people talking in the industry and the NHL and everybody on any broadcasters. They're all saying the same thing. We want to know exactly what goaltender interference is and a clear-cut definition, so that when we're coming to explain it to people, we have a clear-cut, word-for-word way to describe what goaltender interference is, because I don't think a lot of people really know what it is, because on occasions you're going to see a situation like the game last night against Buffalo where you think it's goalie interference. This got to be called back. But then they allow it to be a goal, and you're like scratching your head because you don't know how they can allow that to be a goal. And the problem is that you have these comparables that are literally look like the same exact play that are called goalie interference. So you're like, okay, where's the consistency? That's what I want to know. Where's the consistency? Because right now it's the hardest time for people to explain what's goaltender interference and what isn't. So I'm with you guys. I mean, I'm with other broadcasters. I really share their opinion on this one. I want to know what the consistent call is and what it means and what the correct definition is, and whether or not, and knowing that it's going to be consistently called on a nightly basis, because come the playoff time, if it's not called consistently, we're going to have riots everywhere. Like right now, I envision a Stanley Cup final potential where a team wins the Stanley Cup based on a goal being called back, and then the other team who essentially got the call put in their favor comes back and scores the winning goal. Thus, the team loses out on the Stanley Cup because of that. It would be catastrophic if that were to happen. Anyways, we want to move now. We want to move on now. We want to show you the scoring leaders for your Toronto Maple Leafs. The update on that. We have Mitch Marner leading the way with 18 goals and 36 assists, good for 54 points. William Nylander is second, 14 and 36 for 50. Austin Matthews, who hasn't played because of a sore shoulder in quite some time. He's missed quite a few games here. 28 and 22 for 50 for him. It looks like he won't be back for the foreseeable future, which is terrible news for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But they're holding. And you know what? From a Maple Leafs perspective, you're hoping he's there for the playoffs at least, if not a couple games beforehand. Nazem Kadri is number 4, 24 and 21, good for 45. JVR, 26 and 15 for 41. Jake Gardner, 4 and 36 for 40. Morgan Riley, 6 and 32 for 38. Patrick Marleau, 20 and 16 for 36. Zach Hyman, 13 and 21 for 34. And Tyler Bozak, 10 and 23 for 33 points, rounding out your top 10. Looking now at your NHL leading scorers, Nikita Kucherov has a nice 3-point cushion on Evgeny Malkin for top spot. He has 33 goals and 52 assists, good for 85 points. Malkin, like I said, number 2, 37 and 45. McDavid at 30 and 50 for 80 points. He's in the number 3 spot, 2 points better than Claude Giroux at 23 and 55 has 78. One behind is Stamkos and McKinnon, both at 77 apiece. In the number 7 spot, you have Phil Kessel, 27 and 49 for 76. Number 8 is Johnny Gaudreau at 20 and 54, good for 74. Blake Wheeler at 18 and 56 at 74. And Taylor Hall at number 10, 30 and 42, good for 72 points, rounds out the top 10. Interesting story about Taylor Hall. I tweeted this out a couple of days ago. Since the calendars turned over to 2018, Taylor Hall has put a point on the board in 25 straight games that the New Jersey Devils have played in 2018. Every game he's gotten at least 1 point. The crazy part is in the first 35 games of the season in 2017 for the New Jersey Devils, Taylor Hall registered 34 points, 11 goals and 23 assists, good for 34 points. In 2018, he has 19 goals, 19 assists, good for 38 points. He's put up 72 points on the season. He has been nothing short of unbelievable in this stretch of games. It's historic. We haven't seen a streak like this in quite some time. What Taylor Hall is doing is putting him in serious MVP consideration. It'll be really hard, though, to take this away from Nikita Kucherov, who has literally led the NHL in scoring from the get-go, and he's been very impressive as well. It'll be an interesting debate. Kucherov, Taylor Hall. Both of these players are deserving. Hall is definitely given consideration given his historic streak that he's on. What we want to do now is looking at your NHL standings across the board. We start in the Atlantic with the Tampa Bay Lightning leading the way. They have 94 points, good for first. Boston Bruins at number 2. They have 88 points. Toronto Maple Leafs at number 3, 39, 22, and 7, good for 85. They hold a 15-point cushion on the Florida Panthers, who have 70 points in the number 4 spot. Detroit at 62, Montreal at 61, Ottawa at 56, and Buffalo at 53. Of course, we look at the wild card here, which we'll get to in 1 second. The Metro standings have the Washington Capitals in the first spot. They have 81 points, one better than the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are at 80 points in the number 2 spot. The Philadelphia Flyers are at number 3. They have 79 points on the year, one back of the Pittsburgh Penguins and 2 back of the Capitals. They have a 5-point edge, though, on the New Jersey Devils, who sit at 74 points. Columbus Blue Jackets at 71, Carolina at 69, the Islanders at 67, and the New York Rangers in the number 8 spot at 66. Still in the conversation after that fire sale. Over in the wild card, now we look at it, the New Jersey Devils are in the number 1 wild card at 74 points. Columbus Blue Jackets sit in the number 2 wild card spot at 71. The Florida Panthers, who've been out on an absolute tear of late, have 70 points, good for the number 3 spot. The Carolina Hurricanes, number 4 in the wild card, 69 points. The Islanders at 67, and the Rangers at 66, as mentioned. We want to switch over now to the Western Conference story there. We start in the Central. We got the Nashville Predators at 93 points over the. They hold the number 1 seed over the Winnipeg Jets. They are at 87 points. Minnesota at 81, 1 point better than the Dallas Stars. Colorado at 76, St. Louis at 75, and Chicago at 64. How unbelievably disappointing it is for the Chicago Blackhawks. They are 28, 30, and 8, 64 points. They are dead last in the Central and showing no signs of life. The season they've gone through, I mean, you could chalk it up to the loss of Corey Crawford. It hurts a lot more than it would have on paper, that you would think on paper, but he has proven to be very valuable, as you could see by the turnaround in the Blackhawks this season. We haven't seen the likes of this in quite some time. Normally, they're right up there at the top of the Central, but there are a lot of good teams ahead of them and that have played extremely better than the Chicago Blackhawks this season. We'll get to the wild card in a second. First, we want to go to the Pacific Division. The Vegas Golden Knights, unbelievable story all season long from the very get-go. They are the number 2 seed overall in the Western Conference. They are quite a few points behind, 4 points if I'm not mistaken, behind the Nashville Predators. But they hold the number 1 seed in the Pacific by 10 points over the San Jose Sharks at number 2. Anaheim Ducks at 78, 1 behind. You got the LA Kings, 1 point behind the Anaheim Ducks at 77. Calgary at 74, still in the conversation. Then you have Edmonton, Vancouver, and Arizona, who are not. Edmonton at 60, Vancouver at 59, and Arizona at 51. As you can see by the wild card, you got the number 1 Dallas Stars at 80 points. They are in the number 1 wild card. Los Angeles at 77, Colorado 76, St. Louis 75, and Calgary at 74. All hunting for that second wild card position and a playoff berth. Speaking of which, here's the playoff bracket. If the playoffs were to end today, you'd have Nashville against LA, Winnipeg against Minnesota, you'd have the Vegas Golden Knights against Dallas, and you'd have San Jose against Anaheim on the west side. On the east side, you'd have Tampa and Columbus, Boston and Toronto, Washington and New Jersey, and Pittsburgh and Philly. A lot of juicy series all around. I don't know which one would be the better, but I mean, if it all falls into place, which it seems like it will, this will be your playoff matchups, and there are a lot of good ones across the board to crown a Stanley Cup champion for the 125th time. That's right, 125-year anniversary of the Stanley Cup being awarded this season. It's unbelievable to think that it's 125 years since the first Stanley Cup was handed out. Up next for your Toronto Maple Leafs, it's a light week. It makes sense, though, given that the Boston Bruins have 5 games in hand on the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're going to make up some of those this week, considering that the between now and next Saturday, the Maple Leafs play 3 times in that span, in a span of, I think it's 10 days or 11 days. So there's obviously ample opportunity for the Boston Bruins to gain those games in hand back on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So the Maple Leafs now, they have a break up until Saturday where they welcome in the defending Stanley Cup champions. Not just the defending one-time Stanley Cup champions, defending back-to-back champions. Yes, the Pittsburgh Penguins are at the ACC. Saturday, March the 10th, it's a 7 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada between the Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto. That ought to be a dandy. Anytime Phil Kessel comes back, it gives the Maple Leafs a chance to boo. Really loud, too. Not just for Crosby, not for Malkin, but for Kessel. You can understand. You just know that the boos are coming, and the Boo Birds will be out in full force, for sure. This has been all for your NHL report and your Maple Leafs report for this week's episode of TST. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers, the host of TST, back with you. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the episode thus far, and I hope you appreciate the fact that TST is back. I know I'm very excited about it. I'm finally good to go here now with episodes. It was like 5 or 6 weeks waiting to get back to this point where I can produce episodes again. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm hoping that you guys will appreciate the product and appreciate all the hard work that I'm trying to do for you guys. Really, I do. But anyways, we've reached the point in the show now where we want to talk about the NBA and the Toronto Raptors. You know what? If you're not an NBA fan, but you're just an average Canadian, you got to appreciate what the Toronto Raptors have done this season. You know what? In the last 4 seasons, the Raptors have climbed the ladder every single season, and they've improved dramatically. You can owe a lot of that to the coaching guidance of Dwayne Casey. I think he's been a big integral part of it. But the emergences of DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, I mean, these guys are just unbelievable. You know, they've said it before that I mean, every team you look around, they got that one guy that you can pick out that you can associate the team with. Golden State, you got Steph Curry, LeBron James in Cleveland, Dwayne Wade in Miami now. For a while there was Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma, and you had these guys that have made a name for themselves, like James Harden in Houston, for example, just to name a few, obviously, and then Giannis in Milwaukee, so on and so forth. You can associate these guys with their teams, and it's been the one singular guy. With the Toronto Raptors, they got two. I understand that it's like, oh, well, two, well, that's fine. Look at Golden State, they got like five. I understand that, but I'm saying when it comes to it, Steph Curry will always be the guy over there. He's the guy. Kevin Durant's good. Klay Thompson's good. Draymond Green's good. Steph Curry's the guy, okay? Everybody knows that, all right? But over in Toronto, they got a two-man identity, and that's DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. And these guys have been absolutely incredible, and they showed their worth every single season for the last 4 years, where the Raptors have continued to improve. And this season has been no different because they are absolutely unbelievable. And they sit in the number 1 seed of the Eastern Conference, which is quite an accomplishment if you think about it. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything if they don't get to at least the conference final. The conference final is the bar now. That's where it's been set. If the Raptors can't get to that point, if they can't get to the conference final, then this season has to be dubbed a failure. I understand finishing first, great. Winning 60 games within reach, great. But it doesn't mean jack if they bow out in the first or second round. They got to make at least the conference final. And to be honest with you, then comes the question, if the Raptors make the NBA finals, it's going to be crazy. Jurassic Park, it's going to be off the hook, okay? We won't see this much pandemonium in Toronto since the Jays were winning back-to-back World Series. It'll be unbelievable if they reach the NBA final. But if the Raptors lose in the NBA final, is it still considered a success that they were able to get to the NBA final in the first place? Interesting, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to cheer for failure. The expectation, the goal is the NBA championship. A first way would be in franchise history if the Raptors were to win the NBA championship and finally get some respect. That's a whole nother issue. But if the Raptors get all the way to the NBA final and they get blown out, let's say by the Golden State Warriors, or even if they push them, like, you know what, if they get blown out, that's one thing. If they push them to 7 games and lose, that's another. The biggest thing here, though, is whether or not you would dub it a failure if they were to unsuccessfully win the NBA championship. Because it's great to get there, but if you can't close the door, what have you done? You know what? That's the prize. And if you come up short, it's a great accomplishment being there. Yeah, sure. Your first NBA Finals trip, great. But you gotta, at the end of the day, prove you belong. You gotta be able, at the end of the day, to prove your worth. I think it'll go a lot farther if they were to get there and put a staple on whatever Western Conference team it ends up being. Golden State, Houston, San Antonio, Minnesota, you name it. Portland even. The other thing, though, here that bugs me is the amount of respect, or lack thereof, that the Raptors get across the border. It upsets me to no end, because the Raptors here in Canada get the utmost respect as the ipso facto incredible Toronto franchise because of what they've done over the last 4 seasons. No discredit to what the Toronto Blue Jays have done, but the Toronto Raptors, they've been doing incredible things. And what they've done this year is nothing short of incredible. But, again, if they get all the way to the NBA Finals, and they give let's say the Golden State Warriors or the Houston Rockets, they push them to 7 games, they earn respect. If they win the NBA championship, you better damn well know they'll get respect. But if they get all the way to the NBA Finals, and they get swept, do they gain any more respect than they got now? Well, it'd be hard-pressed to say that they wouldn't improve on that, considering the lack of respect they have south of the border. The other thing is, too, here, is that you have to understand that what's going to happen is they're never going to be able to shred this label south of the border of being choke artists or fake number ones. If they go over and if they go out in the first or second round, then they're going to look like jokes, like they're already being perceived by south of the border, which is really unfortunate. But again, the Raptors have been unbelievable and they've been winning a ton. This past week was no different. Let's wrap the week that was. First off, it was the Toronto Raptors at the ACC in Toronto taking on the Detroit Pistons. Raptors coming out on top, 123-94 was the final. Raptors improving to 42-17 on the year, while the Pistons fall to 28-32. Scoring for your Toronto Raptors, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry both had 20 points apiece, while Serge Ibaka had 19 points, 9 rebounds. Pascal Siakam had 11 and 5 rebounds, and CJ Miles chipped in with 9. For the Detroit Pistons, Andre Drummond continued to be a beast. He had 18 points and 18 boards in the loss, while Blake Griffin had 12 points and 5 assists for the Pistons in the defeat. Pistons fall to 28-32, but like I said, Raptors improving to 42-17. They would move on to take on the Orlando Magic from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. They would be victorious once again. Raptors winning 117-104 over the Magic. Raptors improving to 43-17 on the season, while the Magic fall to 18-43. DeMar DeRozan once again leading the Raptors in scoring. He had 21 points in the victory. Kyle Lowry chipping in with 17 points, 7 boards. Pascal Siakam with 14 and 6. Jakob Poeltl with 13 and 8, and Fred VanVleet with 12. Evan Fournier led the Orlando Magic with 17. He was tied alongside Mario Hezonja, so he had 17 as well for the Orlando Magic in the defeat. As the Raptors once again victorious, 117-104 the final. Raptors improving to 43-17, while the Magic fall to 18-43. Raptors then would continue with a tough matchup against the Washington Wizards, especially on the road. They always play, the Wizards always give them a tough ride for their money, and this was no different, but the Raptors coming out victorious again. 102-95 was the final from the Capital One Arena in Washington. Raptors improving to 44-17, while the Wizards fall to 36-27. DeMar DeRozan again led the way, 23 points for him, CJ Miles with 20, Fred VanVleet with 12, Jonas Valanciunas with 12, Kyle Lowry with 10 and 7 boards. Otto Porter Jr. led the way for the Washington Wizards. He had 24 points, 6 rebounds, while Bradley Beal chipped in with 23 and 7, but it was not enough. 102-95 was the final for the Raptors in this one. And then finally, the Raptors, they wrapped their week with a matchup against the Charlotte Hornets. 103-98 victory at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto for the Raptors. Raptors improving to 45-17 on the year, while the Charlotte Hornets fall to 28-36. DeMar DeRozan led the way. He had 19 points and 8 assists, while Jonas Valanciunas had 18 and 13 boards. Serge Ibaka with 17 and 8 rebounds. Kyle Lowry with 14 points, 10 boards, and CJ Miles with 12 points. Kemba Walker's 27 points, a game high, and 6 boards were not enough for the Charlotte Hornets. They fall to 28-36, while, like I said, the Raptors improve to 45-17. 103-98 was the final. Raptors, like I said, sweeping the week, and DeMar DeRozan was rewarded nicely for it. He was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week in the NBA. Congratulations, DeMar. He's been nothing short of incredible, and you know what? He's in serious conversation for me for the MVP consideration, because he has been this team's backbone. He hasn't missed any time, and he's been a workhorse for the Toronto Raptors, leading them in scoring almost every night. There's often times he doesn't have an off night, but when they do, it seems like the Raptors still win anyways. So it's been nothing short of incredible for DeMar and the Raptors this season. We look now at the Eastern Conference standings. We have the Toronto Raptors ahead in the first spot. They have a 1.5 game lead over the Boston Celtics, who are number 2 at 45-20. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers, 8.5 back of the Raptors at 37-26. They are in the third spot. Indiana Pacers at 37-27. They are 9 behind the Raptors. The Washington Wizards have the number 5 seed at 36-28. The 76ers at 34-28 are number 6. And then you have the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks at 34-30. Both teams at 34-30 in the 7 and 8 spot. You have the Detroit Pistons at 29-35, no real threat. Charlotte Hornets are at 28-36 in the 10 spot. Then you have a logjam from there with teams that are just absolutely having a really tough time this season. You got the New York Knicks 24-40, Chicago Bulls 21-42, Brooklyn Nets at 20-44, Orlando Magic at 20-44, and the Atlanta Hawks at 20-44 to wrap up the East. Flipping over now to your Western Conference, you got the tale of two teams here. You got the Houston Rockets in the number 1 spot. They are 49-13. They have a half-game lead over the Golden State Warriors, who are 49-14. The Portland Trailblazers have been hot of late. They've surged to 38-26 on the season. They are good for the number 3 spot. The New Orleans Pelicans at 36-26 are number 4. Spurs at 37 and 27, number 5. Minnesota T-Wolves at 38 and 28 are number 6. Oklahoma City Thunder at 37 and 28 are number 7. Then you got the Denver Nuggets at 35 and 28, they're number 8. The LA Clippers at 34 and 28 are number 9. The Utah Jazz at 34 and 30 are number 10. You got the Lakers at number 11 at 28 and 35, and then it's basically the bottom feeders at that point. You got the Sacramento Kings 20 and 44, Dallas Mavericks at 19 and 45, Phoenix Suns at 19 and 47, and then the Memphis Grizzlies at 18 and 45. So like I said, you know what? It's shaping up to be an unbelievable finish to the season. You got, like I say, the tale of two teams in the Eastern Conference, the Raptors and the Celtics, and then you got a tale of two teams on the West between the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. Wouldn't those 4 teams make up an unbelievable conference final matchups? Like, it's just unbelievable. I would love to see that. Raptors, Celtics, Golden State, Houston. Be unbelievable basketball to watch for sure. We take a look now at the week upcoming for your Toronto Raptors. They start their week with a matchup at the ACC against the Atlanta Hawks. Tuesday, March the 6th, that goes at 7 p.m. is the tip-off there in Toronto at the ACC between the Hawks and the Raptors. Raptors then will go to Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Michigan, Wednesday, March the 7th. That's an 8 p.m. tip-off between the Raptors and the Detroit Pistons. 2 nights later, they welcome in the Houston Rockets, a battle of 1 versus 1 as it would stand today. Friday, March the 9th, the 7:30 tip-off at the ACC in Toronto. You can expect a packed full house, and it'll be rowdy for the James Harden and the Houston Rockets into Toronto to take on DeMar and the Raptors. And then finally, the Raptors wrap their week with a matchup in New York at Madison Square Garden in New York. On Sunday, March 11th, it's a 1 p.m. matinee affair between the Raptors and the New York Knicks. Yeah, unbelievable matchups across the board for your Toronto Raptors this week. There's a number of good ones for sure. It's a race to the final for the NBA season, and it's going to be fun, and we look forward to covering it week after week on TST Total Sports Talk. We'll be right back after this. Stick around. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for watching for another week of TST. Actually, it's my return, I guess unofficially, because I've been out of the game for 5-6 weeks, but I'm very happy to be back. Very happy to be doing these episodes, and I'm really hoping that, I make it my solemn goal to try and get these episodes and keep pumping them out week after week for you guys. I'm going to try also to make sure that they're as up to date as possible, and that I can get them out to you as soon as possible so that it doesn't seem like you're catching up on old news, I guess. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I really hope that you'll enjoy the program for the talent base. No, I'm just kidding. But for the information and how it's presented, I think I take a lot of pride in the visual aspects of the program. I really want it to stand out that way. And I really hope you guys do appreciate all the hard work and dedication that I'm putting into this, because, I'm doing it for you guys, really. I am. And I guess part of it is to do it for me too, because I do really enjoy it. I really feel like I have a passion for it, and you know what? I just want to be able to continue to keep doing this and to see where it goes. Who knows? But like I say, I really do hope at the end of the day that you guys enjoy what you're watching, and that you'll continue to watch week after week. To cap off another episode of TST, I am Andrew Rogers signing off for another week of TST Total Sports Talk, and we'll see you again next week. Andrew Rogers, host of TST. I'm out. Peace.